Welcome to the GAMERamble review for Majotori, narrated by me, Dark Cloud. As always, the full text review can be found on the GAMERamble website, linked below. The TLDR for Majotori is that it's a trivia game that wraps its 1000+ questions in a whimsical narrative experience with over 50 branching storylines. With questions in categories such as video games, cinema and animation, the game is definitely aimed at players who pride themselves on their knowledge of all things geek, but it's also possible to adjust the frequency of certain categories. The witty writing coupled with colourful visuals and catchy soundtrack makes for a fun experience that shouldn't be overlooked. Gameplay receives an 8 out of 10. Majotori features plenty of questions and interesting categories, while the branching storylines provide the perfect incentive to replay the game. Graphics receives an 8 out of 10. The visuals are simple but colourful and eye-catching. Sound receives an 8 out of 10. Thanks to a whimsical and catchy soundtrack, the lack of voice acting isn't too noticeable. The overall score for Majotori is 8 out of 10. Now for the full review. Wouldn't it be great if your knowledge of all things geek could be used to make your wishes come true? That's pretty much the premise for Majotori, a small indie game that the developers describe as a narratrivia. Majotori combines an interactive narrative with a quiz game to deliver an experience that is a lot more unique than we usually see from the genre. Majotori features a wacky cast of characters who players can follow across more than 50 branching storylines. Each of them has a wish, and it's up to players to help them fulfill this wish by answering a bunch of geeky questions. Before the trivia sections, a short vector-style cutscene plays, which depicts the scene on the arrival of Lariat, a little witch with the powers to grant wishes. Once it's established what the characters are wishing for, players are presented with a series of questions. For each question, players can choose from 4 answers, but only one is correct. Getting all the questions right automatically grants the wish, while getting them all wrong is an automatic fail. Answering some of the questions correctly and others wrong is where things get interesting, as Lariat then spins a wheel. The spot where the wheel stops determines the outcome, which means even if players have only one wrong answer, there's still a chance for the wish to fail if it lands on that spot. Don't worry, as the story for characters continues even if their wishes fail, although the results are usually a lot more tragic. With more than 1,000 questions in 4 categories, which includes video games, cinema, anime and miscellaneous, there's plenty of variety in Majotori. Of course, not everyone is knowledgeable in everything, so the game does allow players to customize the frequency of categories. While it's not possible to exclude certain categories entirely, it does allow players to stick to what they know best. Overall, we really enjoyed the questions, and they are certainly a step up from the same boring trivia found in other games. After completing the game twice to get all the achievements, we also didn't encounter the same questions, which is a good thing. Although the questions are fun, it's the characters and their stories that are the real stars of the game. From a dog whose fondest wishes that the moon will howl back at it, to a teen who wants to be a star on YouTube, there's plenty of humor and variety in these story sections. Sometimes the outcome of failing is quite tragic. There's even an achievement for causing someone to die, but even success doesn't always guarantee a happy ending. Some of the stories continues after a character has a wish granted, and ends up asking Lariat for another wish, as they're not happy with the results. It's impossible to see all these branches in a single playthrough, so the game does provide an incentive for multiple replays. Visually, Majotori is a simple looking game with vector graphics that almost make it look like a South Park episode. The short cutscenes are very creative, and the combination of dialogue and animations had us laughing out loud on a few occasions. Majotori also features a very fitting soundtrack, with some whimsical tunes to accompany the action. The music definitely added to the light-hearted feel of the game, and our favourite track is the one accompanying this section with a dog, as it features actual barking in the song. Unfortunately, Majotori lacks voice acting, but this is understandable for a small indie title. The game is very simple to control, as all players have to do is select the character whose wish they want to experience and then select the correct answers from a list of 4 options. We enjoyed Majotori enough to complete it twice and get all the achievements, but it's also not a game that will appeal to everyone. Players who consider themselves experts on all things geek should definitely try it out to put their knowledge to the test, but more casual players might find themselves stumped by some of the categories. It's also easy to overlook Majotori because it's a trivia game, which by its very nature is very niche, especially as it's not a multiplayer party game with very broad categories. To do so would be a pity though, as the writing is really clever, and the occasional dark humor makes for a very memorable experience. Thanks for joining me for this Majotori PC game review. Remember to like, subscribe and share. Until next time.